Hello folks, welcome to Feldy Farming Simulator map for Farm Sim 2011, made by Farmer Yip, legendary mapper. We have covered a lot of ground in here off cam. Figured I didn't want to bore everybody as I cut a ton of grass over here on the east side. And I'm now in the process of picking up a whole bunch of bales. You can kind of see where we're at. There's some large... Oh, I need to go take care of that. There's some large grasslands over here. You can just open this up here. We can see where we're at on the map. This is where we are. But I just realized I need to get our baler going over there to continue cranking out what we need here to make a profit. Let's see here. I want to go to 3. And oh, sure enough, it still has everything we need in here. We're getting our baler dusty again. Let me see, how many bales have we got? 1,409. You know, once it reaches 1,500, you know, let me try something here. I want to see if it'll let me open this. Ah, there's a New Holland thing. This is the dirt skin. It's supposed to be yellow. Anyway, let me see. Will it allow me to... No, it won't. I guess it has to be totally empty. It'd be nice to be able to refill it with strings so that I could preempt it and leave it going. But it looks like we have 91 bales before it'll be hollering at us that it needs more. Okay, now let me make sure that's down. I already have a course started. And you know what? I did this course longhand so that it goes round and round. So this baler is simply going to follow it. Like I say, I've done quite a bit of work in here setting up these courses. And let me just get it going. I'm going to tell him to stop the last point. And yeah, he should, if all goes well, do his thing. It actually does surprisingly well. Much better than I would have thought. Yeah, I'm just hoping here as he does the outer rounds that he doesn't end up flicking some bales right into the ocean where they will be inaccessible. So it seems like, I mean, it almost as if they're sitting on ice, you know, when they go down on the map. But yeah, as long as he can put this one on the flat, he hurries up and dumps it before he reaches the corner. We should be all right. Come on, drop it, drop it. Oh, phew. Yeah, I was worried when we went around that corner that maybe he would throw it out in the ocean. All right, he should be good for now. I'm going to go back to my other tractor and continue. Let's see, Control 1. I like it when this works. So I need to get a full load of bales here and take them over and sell it. And of course, you'll see we have a little bit of cash, but we've taken a couple loads down there. I'm still on the hook for about 16,000. So I'm going to pick up. We got a whole number of bales over here. We had it all baled before the section where he's doing it now. So now we just need to come in here and pick them up and head on down and sell them. You know, you may notice, too, that it's a little lighter in here than it would otherwise be at 6:09 in the evening. And the reason for that is I forgot to remove a second sun that I put into the map. I've been doing a little bit of modding on the map, which I'll show everybody here in a moment, kind of what I've been fiddling with. But I don't know how other people are, you know, when they go in and mess about in the Giants editor, but sometimes it is really dark in there, and I find myself adding additional lights just so I can see details, you know, that I otherwise wouldn't be able to see. And so this time here I added a whole nother sun, so it has 2 of them going at the same time. And so it's duplicating whatever light effect we would otherwise have in here. So hopefully nobody minds. We'll just say it's yeah, what do you say, the Northern Lights? I don't know if they have those in Scotland or wherever Feldy would be. You know, I've looked up Feldy a time or two also on the internet trying to find where it would be, and I almost think I came across something that had that, and I'll need to go find that again and share the... Is there any more bales up here? I guess there is a little bit. I'm going to go back over here. Let me pick up the remaining ones. I know it fits 48 of them. Just to fill this thing up. What I've noticed is you don't get nearly as many grass bales as you get at, when you're doing straw or some of the other commodities. I don't know why that is. Probably just a setting would have to tweak in there. Maybe that's true in real life. What do I know? I'm just a poor farmer trying to make his way in Feldy, Scotland, or wherever this is. Alright, 28. We need 20 more bales. If we don't have them in the field, I'm going to have to chase the baler a little bit, maybe, to get a full regimen. It takes a little while to drive down over the hill, so I'd like to make sure I'm good and full when I do it. For all I know, I could set up a course even to do this, but it'd probably be a little bit more difficult. And like I say, we have done a lot of work in here. There was significant time off cam just to set up these courses, get these bales. I think it was the last episode that I recorded, I attempted to do a traditional course, generate course, up on one of these grass fields, and it just didn't work. I mean, I think the newer versions of Farming Sim, the course play that is in it gives you more options. You can do more around the field trips. But in this one here, I think it, maybe there's an option in there. I just need to continue exploring. You forget so much, or I do anyways, on these older versions how things worked. Alright, 7 more bales. I think we have the bales in the field. I just have to go get them. But it just pushed me into going back and forth, and I don't care about going back and forth, that'd be fine. But the trouble we have, with our equipment is, with this particular windrower cutter, is it doesn't lift the header up at the end of the row, so it just makes a smeared up mess of the field. Here's a couple. Yeah, boy, I gotta be careful. Let's skip this spot right there. Yeah, here's one lonely bale. Oh, let me drown. I think I'm getting my tractor tires wet. Who is dumb enough to cut hay right on the edge of the ocean? I guess I am. Alright, so we're full. We're gonna head on over to the delivery point. So we got a little bit of driving to do, and I previously set up a course to do this, but it kind of went to the upper end of the map, if you will. The fish field is just kind of receding there, so it'd be north of that. But I don't have a driving course at the moment. I suppose I can set one up, but it's just as easy to take us all over there manually. Kind of denuded the landscape of grass and just trying to make a little bit more money. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of work hauling these bales, so probably when I'm more flush with cash in here, there's going to be no more cutting of the grass over here. So I'll have those courses all set up basically for nothing. We can kind of see through the trees that our crop is coming along up on the hill, and so it's going to be a while, I think, before we harvest it. There's other crop that is already ready to harvest. We'll be coming in here shortly and seeing some of that. I think those potatoes in the field dead ahead are ready to go. So as soon as we get done cutting all this, well, actually we're done cutting, making, when we get done baling all this grass over here, we're going to be ready to step into harvest and walk through the map again. And this time I think we'll take care of our money problems, hopefully once and for all. With this load here, we're going to get another, we'll take a nice dent. I think is it just under 10,000 that we can get? So we'll whack another 10 off of that and be in decent shape. Oh, I'm on the wrong side of the road. When in Rome, do as the Romans. Yeah, I'm reminded again, Farmer Yip didn't put any traffic in the map, so it's generally pretty easy to drive in here no matter which side of the road you prefer. To the right, I think is oilseed rape, so we're going to need to windrow that, and it looks right. Cross over our bridge, and we'll get this puppy ready to unload. Get through the gate here, and you'll notice something that we haven't had in here before. And I mentioned I was doing a little bit of modding, and here's kind of what I've been up to. Let me first of all move this into the trigger so we can get our hay sold. See that little log sitting there? I think I can get the trigger. Yeah? Alright, let's sell this, and hopefully it works. First off, let me make sure I got no errors. Oh yeah, we're doing alright. Okay. Boom, let's sell it. Sweet. We got plenty of money. Alright, we're immediately going to repay 10 grand on this. Like we spoke, we're almost out of debt, folks. Okay, so we'll get this over here. And I'm going to pull this forward just a little bit. And maybe I'll drop it there. Let's come over here. We have over here a log. And you may recall from a couple of episodes ago that we looked at another map that had a whole bunch of logs, and basically, actually, turn the lights on off, I can see it a little bit easier. I shamelessly went in there, got this object, and imported it over here. Don't drive over the logs, oh, for goodness sakes. Just go in there, please. Come on, get in there. Oops! Nope, oh, dang it. Okay, maybe I need to walk it over. What I need is that blade attachment. Oh, phooey. Alright. Yeah, I'm driving through the fence. Come on, get in there. Alright, did you see that it disappeared? You may have noticed that it gave me $500. Let me see, make sure it popped. No error. Okay, that's some other thing, I think. So we got rid of the log, which is helpful. And so what I want to take a little time to share with y'all is some of the modding that I did. Now, obviously, the log had to show up there. And herein is some problems or issues, the modder needs to contend with as objects are put into a map. Everything we see in here is a type of object. I'm going to leave it just sitting here for the moment and kind of head out of game. So, well, let me just say, everything, whether it's granary here, or a cow, or the fence, the road, or the log that we just saw, they're an object. These are what are called static objects. We could ram this all day long with our tractor, but it isn't going to move. Ditto with the cattle here, but the log, on the other hand, moved, and it's what is known as a dynamic object, meaning it moves on its own. You can push it here, push it there. But there's a twist. This dynamic object happened to be entered into the map editor, and this is differentiated from other types of dynamic objects, say like the hay bales, that we're putting out in the field. The hay bales, of course, aren't put into the map, but are being created on the spot, so they're handled differently. When an object is put into the map, it's going to reappear exactly at that same location every time you open the map. So if we were to close the game right now and reopen it and come back to this location, we would see a log right over here as if we hadn't just sold it. Now, that can be useful, and that's kind of how that other map was set up that we looked at where all those logs were sitting there. But it may not be the direction we want to take. But currently that is kind of how I set it up, and I'll go show you what I mean. We'll leave our baler going for the moment, and we'll just head out of game real quick. Alright, here's the map in the editor. The tractor, of course, was sitting over here, and here's this log. So we put the log, well actually, yeah, we put the log right here. I wanted to show you what it is. Poly surface. It's a simple little object that we just imported onto the map. I put it in the files, and I put some other areas too, kind of for testing purposes. And don't need to worry about those at the moment, but this one here was just to see if we could sell it or get rid of it in the trigger. So it like I say, it's a simple little object. We set it up over here as this may need to change. It should not have that big of a clip distance. That's something I'm going to need to change. Clip distance is the distance by which the game engine renders an object. So you could be 10, or this is, what is that, 1 million? Oh my, that's 1 million meters. You could be 1 million meters away from this object in game and still see it. Now, if it had a clip distance of, say, 10 meters, once you get 10 meters away from it, you're no longer going to see it. Let me make the point here. You don't see the log there anymore until we get within 10 meters, and there it's going to reappear. So let me click on it. I'll maybe call it 1,000 meters or something. That's probably still too much. So it will be seen as long as you're within 1,000 meters of it. I'm going to need to fix these other ones that I put in here as well. So it's sitting here, and over in the other map, this is all it was called, just polysurface, a simple, I guess poly for polysurface. Someone made it in a blender. It has the look of a tree trunk, of course. I gave it a user attribute and called it isLog. There may be any number of other polysurface type objects up here named this, that, and the other, and so I wanted to differentiate these and call them isLog. And it's just a simple, what they call a Boolean type, meaning it's either true or it's false. And if the box is checked, that means it's true. This is a log. And the reason I put that in there is because when you move it into a trigger, when it has that attribute, I want the trigger to do something with it. If it's some other dynamic object and it doesn't have that attribute, well, then I don't want the trigger to do anything with it. And in order for the trigger to do something with it, we had to tweak the code a little bit. So the trigger is sitting right here. That's this box. And won't go into how a trigger is set up, but it's another type of rigid body that's defined as a trigger in here. And it interacts with certain types of what they call collision masks. And it's certain boxes that are checked, and so there's certain types of objects, and this has the type that is recognized by this trigger. So the trigger, actually, this is a bale destroyer trigger, if you will, and although it's just named that, it's just a trigger here, but it's part of a different, it's called a barn mover trigger. And really, what Yip did is he took we can see it under here. See, here's the elevator sitting under the map. Farmer Yip didn't break the parts apart. He just put the elevator down here where you couldn't see it, and he moved the bale destroyer trigger up here where we needed it. But this is the same one, on the standard map that goes kind of up into the barn, and when it takes it up there and drops it off, it dumps it into this bale destroyer trigger. But the whole thing works kind of together. So it is designed, obviously, so that it accepts bales and only bales. And so we had to do something with the barn mover trigger. to get its bale destroyer trigger to recognize, hey, let's accept bales and the log. And the only reason I'm doing this, I mean, you wouldn't ordinarily take logs at a place that bales are sold. I'm just trying to figure out a way as a modder to how to get rid of this particular object, and was experimenting with it. And as we just saw in game, of course, it worked. So in order to make sure the trigger can accept a new type of object, we have to tweak the Lua code. So we did that over here. Every map, as you may be aware, has what's called a sample mod map Lua file. This is called up in the mod description. This is where Farmer Yip and Doc Hilty added some additional scripts. You know, they put some additional scripts in here that they have as source. Actually, several sources down here too, to add in the additional fruits that they did, the bale converter, so forth and so on. And so I figured I would use this file because it's already being called up by the map to add some additional code to handle this. So what I did down here, I looked up the barn mover trigger script, and there is what's called a trigger callback target in there. And the trigger callback target is for specific to what the code is supposed to do when something comes into the trigger. You know, it could be you walk into it, it could be you drive into it, it could be you drop bales in it, it could be you drop logs in it. And so this is telling the game engine, what do we do when something comes into it? You know, there's a trigger ID, which is called in the map, and then something comes into it, and what do you do it upon enter, or upon leaving the trigger, or when it stays in there? And I'm not really sure how the on stay works. I think a lot of the time what you'll see is it primarily happens on enter. Something happens when on enter, meaning something comes into the trigger. So what I did is, you know, if on enter, so something's coming in and other ID is not equal to 0, meaning there is some kind of entity that is coming in and it has some kind of substance. I think that's all that means. Well, then we look up what this other ID is. What is this object that came in? So we're going to define what the object is, get the node to the object that's calling up code in the game engine to see what this thing is. We're going to see if it has the user attribute. Remember we said is log. Does it have that? So if it doesn't have that, what this is going to be is just nil or nothing. So if is log is not equal to nil, meaning it is something, it's either true or false, and is log, meaning this is shorthand for true. I could say is log equals true. And if object is not equal to nil, meaning it found something of substance that has a node, then do this stuff here. Well, it's going to play this little code that we always hear when we sell bales. That's the play the sample. And then it's going to give us some money based on difficulty level. I gave it a base value of $500 or whatever. And then once it does the add, it's going to add the money to our account, and then it's going to delete the object. It took a few tries for me, but this is finally what worked in terms of selling the log and getting rid of it in game. Now, if it's not a log, or if it's any other thing other than this set of circumstances, then this super function in here says, this statement here basically says, do the normal code. This is known, I think I mentioned this before, this is kind of hooking the code, if you will, and this is the extra code that we're putting in there, but the barn mover trigger callback target script is still in full force. We are just hooking into it and adding this little bit, and we're saying, do this, and if none of this applies, well then do the regular code. So when we drop the bales in there, the bales aren't logs, so they're not going to be caught up in here, so they're going to fall into here, and it's going to do the regular code, and this code is designed to sell bales. So it's going to go do the regular code, which isn't printed here, but actually looks somewhat similar to this. It's just set up a little bit differently. So we put all this in here, and then down here we have utils overridden function, so we overwrite what is here. and we put this in there with this. And this calls our sample mod map, and it calls the modifications that we put into it. So I just wanted to show that. I mean, that's just some simple Lua code hooking of the game engine's existing code and just a few tweaks that enable us to get rid of this log here. Now, the downside is as we see the log sitting here, like I mentioned earlier, when we reload the map, it's going to appear there again. Now, I did this just for testing, so I could just as well get rid of this log because we don't need it here. Where we really want to do logging, maybe I'll just take you there and go see that area of the map real quick, is way over here in this area that's kind of cordoned off. We have a little mountain range here, if you will, and I put a bunch of logs up here on the hill as if somebody has cut them. I don't know that we can cut our own trees. But they're kind of hanging up here in the air. As the game starts, they're going to fall with gravity, and I got a fence out here to catch them. So every time the game loads, I think that there's 15 logs up here. That's kind of what I've set up. That will just magically reappear. We can haul them off. We can sell them like we just saw. And then they're gone for the game session. But the next time we load up the map, if we wish, we can come get 15 more of them. And so I just chose to put some here. I've been trying to do a little bit of work on this side of the map and clean this nasty road up over here. I still don't know how to make a decent road. It is horribly hard in the editor to get a smooth road going up a slope on the side of a hill. It is just beastly. So, but that's kind of what I'm working on over here. Oh yeah, and the extra sun that I put in the map is right here because I wanted some additional light over here. I mean, let me show you what happens when I delete it out of here, and you'll see immediately why I wanted to have it. Look how dark that is. I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, I don't know anybody that can just do any work here. So I wanted to make sure that I had some additional light and could see what I was doing. All right, let's go back in game, and actually I want to just go straight out to my baler and make sure he, oh shoot, he isn't going to let me. So I need to just tab ahead, I think. I want to, let me see, all right, he's kind of on the, okay, he has a little bit of room, basically 16 more bales, and he, all right, he should be okay. He should be okay. We'll get to 1,500. Because he'll keep going. Unfortunately, when he runs out of ropes, he won't make any bales, but he'll keep going according to the course. But he might just make it and be okay. We'll go back to our tractor, and we'll get headed back out there as we have lots of bales to pick up. So I don't know when I'm going to get logging implemented in here. It's kind of going to be just pseudo logging, if you will. I know in Farm Sim 09 we had the ability to cut down trees if you had a particular mod to do it, and it worked great. You know, maybe there's a way to bring that in here, but most of the trees in here are actually a type of foliage, no different from, you know, the crop foliage or whatever, and we don't really have very many regular static trees, if you will. You know, we have a couple of them here coming up dead ahead, actually, you know, that are on either side of the bridge here. But I don't want to cut those down. But anyway, like I'm saying, I mean, we could at least have logs present in here that the player needs to haul just to kind of add something to the game. And you know, I gotta say, a long time ago when I played this map kind of for the first time, and was thinking of all sorts of things that I had no ability to implement or do. But you know, these are the dreams we have as players of extras we'd like to have in the game, even if we don't know how to put them in there. Logging was kind of one of those things, you know, where some logs would just appear and be available, and the player would have to somehow figure out how to haul them down into town, maybe. And I had thought, you know, maybe a barge could be down there, kind of tethered to shore. You know, in the area I know where I live, there's a lot of logs that are sometimes hauled on barges up and down the river. And so I thought, well, maybe the player could do that. You just take it to the barge, you dump it on the barge, and it magically sells, disappears, or whatever. So that's kind of just, some ideas I've had or whatever in here, and I don't know. I think on that other app, that we looked at that had some logging activity or trees or whatever, if you will. I think they had a type of sawmill going on, if I recall correctly. But I don't know that particular modder really did anything with it. Like we have here, those tree trunks were also embedded in the map, and so every time the player would open the map, all the logs would be back in their original spot. So that's kind of another thought too, but it would take a bunch of work, and I'm not sure how much work I have time to put in, to be honest. I think I recently did a project for Farm Sim 09 where I took a mod I made back in Farm Sim 15 with rock objects, and I took it back to Farm Sim 09 and made it work, got it to work, but it was a ton of work to do. And the difference with the rocks is they were similar to... Ooh, I jumped when I heard that. They're similar to bales, meaning they are created on the spot, and they come about when the farmer would dig until in the dirt. And when you moved a rock and then saved the game, the next time you pulled up the game, that old rock would be in the same spot, where you left it. Well, not so with these logs that we're talking about, unless, I were to do a significant amount of work to set them up as their own objects, or, well, what I could do is even treat them as a type of bale. We could just cheat and call them a bale and work it that way too. So yeah, but I may just leave it the way it is. I know one of the things I'm working on right now is trying to figure out an equipment contingent for logging. The physics in here are really not very good. Oh yeah, he's on his final run. The physics aren't very good, so the idea of moving logs around in here doesn't exactly appeal to me. In terms of picking them up with a piece of equipment and hauling them on something and holding them down. So I got to consider things like, can I create an auto log picker-upper? Can I make it so that it will stay tight on a trailer and not move around and jiggle around as we drive down the road? And so there's all of those kinds of considerations too. So one thing to create a log and stick it right by the trigger, where we can push it in, well, that's easy. But if we actually have to do a little work as a player and drag them down from the mountains, well, that's going to be a little bit more problematic. So maybe at some point, I don't know when, I'll try to roll all that out. I think for now I'm going to just delete that log out of the trigger, now that I know that it works, and that way the pesky thing isn't in the way every time when I load the game up. And I think our baler is... He's reached his endpoint, so he's done. I got a few little bits to clean up around the field, and we're going to be done. So in the next episode, probably what I'll do is I'll fast forward time and get a day ahead as soon as I take care of business here, and we will start harvesting. I think the rest of this I'll probably do off cam and just take care of it so you all don't have to watch it. But everybody heard the bell. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride and for enjoying a little bit of Feldy with me. Thank you for your time, and you have a wonderful day. Goodbye.